What happens when you take a car, cut away all of the stuff that doesn't matter and leave just the juicy elemental bits that makes it fun? Well, that's what a Caterham is. We have one on track coming up. So Caterham is a full-blown manufacturer of cars in the UK, but a lot of people will refer to them as kit cars. It's not really entirely accurate. It's more accurate to call it a specially manufactured or a component car. These are cars that do use pieces from other vehicles. In fact, the car that Carl loaned us has a 2-liter Ford Zetec. Newer cars have Duratec Fords in them, and they use a lot of pieces that come off of parts bins from other manufacturers, and they are assembled in a fairly custom way, although there are some basic layouts that you can purchase right from Caterham, and they will deliver that to you either as a rolling chassis or as a powered chassis, let you finish it yourself, or deliver you a nearly completed automobile. So regardless of how you outfit your particular Caterham, it's gonna be very, very similar to other models. It's gonna have a wishbone front suspension. This particular model has a De Dion rear suspension. Carl estimates that his car weighs well under 1,500 pounds, actually closer to 1,300 pounds as it's presented for the track. Now that is really light. In fact, if you strip everything out of a Miata, you're gonna have a hard time getting it down to that level. You're gonna have a hard time getting Miata under about 1,650 to 1,700 pounds, completely gutted. So you're talking about a car that weighs just a little over half a ton, where your body weight, even if you're smaller than me, which you probably are, but is still a considerable portion of the mass of the car. So what that does is it really gives you a very intimate relationship with the car because it's so light, because all this mass around you is able to be moved at much easier than it is if it has inertia going in one direction. There's not a lot of mass here, so you can change that inertia much more easily than you can with a larger car. And pretty much every car that you're ever going to drive is going to be larger than this one, save for stuff like formula cars or dedicated sports racers. A set of 205 millimeter wide 13-inch tires are all that holds this thing to the ground. AP brakes that fit inside those 13-inch wheels stop it with a great deal of authority, because you just don't need a lot of force because the car is not making a lot of force to begin with. Also, very interesting seating position in this car. If you look at where you sit within the wheelbase of the car, the driver is parked basically right over top of the rear axle. The center of rotation of the car actually sits in front of you. It has a very low center of mass, obviously, and the center of mass is well behind the front axle, very close to the middle of the car, but you're actually behind the middle of the car. So when the car moves, it doesn't tend to rotate around you. You rotate around the center of mass with the back of the car. So when the back of that car steps out, you get a little bit of a different view of what's going on. It takes some getting used to, but once you kind of figure it out, it actually lets you do some really aggressive things with the front, especially in an autocross situation, because anything the rear two tires can get through, the front will have obviously made it through already. So it's just a really interesting perspective from behind the wheel. Now, also, you're talking about a very, very small car here. In fact, if you look at the video of me driving it, it's kind of giving, a circus bear on a tiny bicycle. But let me tell you something about that bear. He may be wearing a funny hat and he may look like a dork on that bike, but he is having a fantastic time. He is having the time of his life on that tiny bicycle. Getting into this car is, it's as easy as just sort of letting gravity do the work, but once you're in, the foot box is very, very narrow. I had to wear the thinnest racing shoes that I could find just to get all three pedals to be functional. And you really don't have a lot of room to move back and forth between that throttle and that brake. So when you make that move, you need to be very, very precise. But once you figure it out, all those pedals are right where they should be. The relationship between the wheel, pedals, and shifter is fantastic. And again, you're right out in the elements. You're close to the ground. You're literally close enough to the ground where you can reach out with one hand and touch the ground. That's how intimate this relationship is between person, car, and surroundings. So as we mentioned, the construction of these Caterhams is a little bit of a mix and match deal. Now, Carl says that the closest sort of new model that they offer out of the catalog for these cars would be something like the 420R. Carl's is a wide track car. It's had an SCCA spec roll cage augmented to the factory roll cage of the car. It's got those AP brakes, has a limited slip differential. It's got a lot of nice high performance stuff because it is primarily a track toy for him. And boy, does it excel on track. Because you are so intimately engaged with this chassis, you really have a great feel for everything all four wheels are doing. There's fantastic feedback through the steering wheel, through your hips, through your feet, through your inner ear. And because you sit right on that rear axle, you've got a great idea of what the rear of the car is doing too. So you tend to be able to anticipate things really, really well. And when you do make a mistake, it's a very minor mistake, and it's actually kind of fun to correct those mistakes because it does recover so easily. Now, speaking of track, what you're really here for is the data. We took our VBox HD Mini, hooked it up to the Caterham, and ran it out on the Florida International Rally and Motorsports Park, the official test track of Grassroots Motorsports, and we are going to take a look and see how it stacks up. So let's bring up the data from our best lap right here. Is a 1 minute 19.11 seconds. That definitely puts it in the top tier of stuff that we have tested on the Florida International Rally and Motorsports Park. It puts it up with stuff like the Toyota Supra, faster BMWs, and into the territory of some of the race cars we have tested. And remember, this is a car with actually 220 tread wear tires. They're not that wide, so it's doing a lot without much resources to do it with here. Taking a look at the overall shape of the curve here, the first thing I'm seeing is just some really, really nice brake peaks. Now, for a car with no ABS and without, you know, a lot of sophisticated modern hardware, this transition between acceleration and braking here to be this sharp, that is really indicative of a brake system with fantastic feel and feedback. You can actually see, a little ripple in the braking right here. This is probably from backing off from a lockup. We see the deceleration rate change just a little bit, but doesn't change a lot. We never lose deceleration because of lockup. There was just a little bit of modulation there. Our rate of deceleration stayed actually quite aggressive, but didn't come off completely. So that's actually a pretty good indication of just the kind of feedback you're getting through the brake system here. Another thing we like to look at is the acceleration out of corners here. We can see that the transitions from minimum speed back to acceleration, especially here in the hairpin, are really sharp. So you're getting down to that minimum speed, you're getting right back on the throttle and accelerating out. We see a little bit of a pause in acceleration here. We actually don't lose acceleration, we just sort of change the rate of acceleration. Maybe a little bit of wheel spin. We got a little bit too aggressive with the throttle, but just stayed in it until those tires hooked up again and we started accelerating at the proper rate. That's what I'm guessing that is. So yeah, fantastic transitions. You know, really the transitions here of a much more modern, more sophisticated car, which tend to have a little bit better suspension compliance and control. Also seeing pretty good speed here through the S's. We see a steady deceleration through the S's. So look how much curb we are taking here in the S's. We're basically going almost all the way to the dirt over both the FIA curbs and the concrete curbs. So we're sending that suspension through a lot of travel and it's soaking it up really, really well. Now that's not something you really often see in race cars or cars that are very stiff or cars without a lot of suspension compliance. But this Caterham doing a fantastic job at being compliant, being calm over those bumps. Let's bring up another car here. This is going to be the best lap from another very elemental race car, the Mazda MX-5 Cup car that we tested recently. And we'll see that the time on the Cup car, 119.72 seconds versus a 119.11 for the Caterham, so just a little bit faster for this this more elemental sports car than the Mazda is, but still a very similar looking curve here across the board. One thing we see is because of possibly the ABS and the slick tires of the Mazda, we see the MX-5 Cup car going a little bit deeper into these hard brake zones, like right here, braking into turn 5. We see, let's look at our speed over here, current speed, 95.3 versus 91.2, so a little bit of a horsepower advantage to the Mazda, and a little bit of a deeper push on braking there, but another very similar, very aggressive braking initiation for the Mazda right there. And one place we actually do see the Caterham outpulling the Mazda is here, coming out of the hairpin. The Caterham's going 2-3 on the shift here, and I believe the Mazda was just basically staying in second, and winding the very tall second gear out there. So we've got a little bit more approach speed to our turn 8 complex here. But again, very sharp brake applications for both of them. This Mazda MX-5 Cup car, thoroughly modern car with fantastic ABS and slick tires, and this this technology that dates back from the 1950s is going toe-to-toe for it under braking, which is a very difficult place for a car to really shine. So well done, Caterham there. Great job making a car that just does a fantastic job under braking. Let's take a look at our delta curve here, and we'll see where the Caterham is actually picking up all of its speed. So we see our delta curve climbing here in favor of the Caterham. This is the exit of turn 1 and turn 2, heading down to turn 3. So we're seeing superior cornering speed there and superior exit speed, picking up a bit of time, actually picking up almost 0.3 of a second by the time we get to the entry to turn 3 here, and that's right off. That's right after start finish basically. So that first corner is where the MX-5 Cup car falling behind by quite a bit. The Mazda starts to pull it back here, and this delta curve actually starts coming closer to being equalized, and the Mazda actually pulls ahead a little bit in where are we now? We are up here in the turn 5, turn 6 area, and that is because we've got a little more speed out of the Mazda between these two corners. The Mazda sort of holds a little bit of an advantage till they get to the S's, and then fascinating here, the Caterham snatches it back in the S's. That's a place where I would really expect a more modern, more highly developed suspension car to excel. You're talking about a lot of bumps there. The Caterham just sort of drives away from the Mazda in the S's, pulling out a nice little advantage. Nice advantage on minimum speed going through the hairpin, and this acceleration using really favorable gearing, getting down to the next corner. Through the next corner, the Mazda pulls back a little bit of its time, but again, corner exit and acceleration down the next chute. The Caterham is just fantastic on corner exit. That last phase of cornering really seems to be where it's excelling and where it's gaining a lot of its advantage. So overall, I think what really stands out to me the most is when you look at both of these curves laid over top of each other, it's really difficult to look at these and say, oh, one of these is from a car that uses 70-year-old technology. You're talking about technology from the 1950s. And one of these is a modern race car built in 2023. These curves look like they are produced by very, very similar cars. And for one of them to be able to do it using, you know, 3/4 of a century old technology, that's pretty impressive. I just cannot tell you how much I appreciate the opportunity to drive a car like this. And if you appreciate the opportunity to watch great content like this, whether it be one of our track tests, any of our tech features, or any of the great stuff we're putting here on YouTube, go down here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. You'll get first crack at all the content we put here on YouTube. And check us out on the web at grassrootsmotorsports.com, where you can find all of the content from the print magazine and fantastic web-only features. We appreciate you sharing this time with us, and we're going to see you next time at the track.
Support brands who support Grassroots Motorsports. Get your chemical solutions from CRC Industries. To learn more, visit crcindustries.com. Want to see more content like this? Make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video. And for more information, visit us online at grassrootsmotorsports.com.